Any questions or anything?
I have some questions. Yes, please. First, my own sermon. I have been agitated and disturbed from the time I went through the cassette, VCR, in which you had, in Karachi, you mentioned that after about 1,000 years of our caliphate, Ahmadiyya caliphate, then the majority of the people, or the most of the people, will again go back. And you,
I said there is a danger.
Yes.
Not that they will do such a thing, but I mentioned the possibility of danger.
Yes, sir.
That it might ever happen. Right.
And that only on bad people who would predominate in the world that the Qiyamah would come. That agitated me and keeps me agitating, that even in this later phase of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, وَآخِرِنَ مِنْهُمْ, will they ultimately end that way?
Everything has to end that way. That is the most unfortunate thing. And because this is the scheme of things where Allah. Except for Allah, nothing is lasting. Even the proton has been proved to be not eternal. It is going to end up. Pakistan is already working on this. What should be the lifespan of the proton? The point is, nothing is very respectable except Allah. Whatever comes to be is there.
I also argue, I hope I did, because at another place I argued this, that if after coming of Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu, after the standard to which he lifted his followers at his time, if we see the decay of the mullah of today, how can we expect to be spared the rod of time? It's impossible. No slave of Hazrat would lift his followers beyond the station to which Hazrat had lifted his followers. Sullatum min al-awwaleen is mentioned much more often in the Holy Quran than Sullatum min al-akhirin. That means, as far as the very best position is concerned, the majority among the awwaleen would get it. And from the akhirin, it will not be a great number, but a smaller number. So when in the very best thing, Allah mentions the first and the last ones, people of the latter days, I should say, where Allah says, Sullatu min al-awwaleen wa qalilun min al-akhirin. As far as the top status goes, there will be a great many people from those of the first appearance. And those of the latter days would also achieve that, but they will be less in number comparatively. So that shows that the rod of time does not spare anything, anybody. It has to. The process of decay is inevitable. If you have taken your lessons from history, then all that you can do is you can prolong that process. For instance, if you compare two different people living in houses built together, and these two people I am mentioning by their illustration, suppose they are of a very different temperament. One is very careful and painstaking in his repairs and things, and the other is just negligent. The house of the one would go into decay in a matter of years, and the house of the other one may last even 100 years. So it is the process of repair which is all important, because decay there has to be, you can't avoid it. So the best thing is for Ahmadis to learn their lesson from history And this is what I hope, inshallah, will do. Because our spread is slow, so our decay would be slow, inshallah. This is again a natural law. But we can still prolong that process by very careful application. And I hope, inshallah, in future too, we'll continue to look after our faults and draw our lessons from the history and know where people faltered earlier, where we should mind our steps and so on and so forth. And if we go on repairing ourselves, inshallah, we'll be all right.
Then, sir, certainly in elucidation morning, when you remind of the mission in Kenya, but he has requested certain elucidations from you, sir, with the reference to your session with the Cambridge University students. First elucidation had to be a short form. When Huzur had mentioned that Jesus got married perhaps after his deliverance from the cross, he had also referred to
what I said was he might or might not have married.
Yes.
As far as we know, we will do everything either way. That's what I said.
This
is a very clear issue.
Yes.
We don't know.
Not definite. He of course has referred to that ayat from Surah Ra. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلًا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَذُرِّيَّةً. That is, they sort of in general terms, because old prophets.
Now, the question seems to be based that if there was a possibility of Jesus Christ having married after his migration from Pakistan, then according to Tahir Archive, this is all right.
If, as I discussed, the other possibility as well, that he might not have married at all, that is what bothers him. And in support of his argument, he is presenting this verse which you read. Could you read it again, please?
وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلًا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ أَزْوَاجًا
This
وَذُرِّيَّةً.
is very important. The word Rusulan is used.
Yes.
Rusulan is a plural, but not all comprising, like Ar-Rusul. Ar-Rusul means all the prophets. Rusulan means some prophets, or prophets as such, but it does not indicate totality. So the most convincing proof of there being some prophets who died without marriage is to be found in the very age of Hazrat Jesus Christ, Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. Because in his time there was Hazrat Yahya, and the questioner also knows that he was not married. He got martyred at the age of 30 or so. So there is a positive evidence of Hazrat Yahya being there, who was martyred before getting married. So this verse could not be included in him. If it did not include him, why must it include Jesus Christ? Peace be upon him.
The other elucidation that he has sought for, not much of a question. Huzur perhaps during the same session has also observed that Allah could bring fertility to a barren woman or to a hermaphrodite. Hazrat Muslim in Tafsir Kabir had mentioned that like Jesus, the founder of the Manchu dynasty of China, was also born without a father.
Now, I understand this point.
Yes.
If you force us historical evidence, it will not get away with those who do not want to believe it.
Because it's not a convincing argument as far as the agnostics are concerned, or those who are not inclined to believe in this. Because this is just a story. Even if history tells us, where is the proof? This is what I mentioned in that particular video as well, that we know of so many people having claimed to have been born without father. But we don't believe in them because the only person about whom Allah bore witness, Allah gave the testimony, was Jesus Christ. Of the rest, there is just human testimony. And human testimony in this regard is most unreliable, because unless somebody says that I was present during the meeting of father and mother, he can't say that I bear testimony that this is the child of so and so. So it's a situation which is impossible. Because of the very situation, the only being which can bear testimony is Allah, and no one else is in a position to bear testimony to this. So that is what I argued, that in view of the situation, all we can say is that we don't know. So how can we prove it as an argument to it?
This is another question from him. He again referred to certain observations made by himself.
But made by the next what?
That the teachings of forgiveness were propounded in the Torah also. And the Quranic verse, كَتَبْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ فِيهَا أَنَّ النَّفْسَ بِالنَّفْسِ, and the further that follows. فَمَنْ تَصَدَّقَ بِهِ فَهُوَ كَفَارَةٌ لَهُ. Yes. That this
exactly is the verse,
yes,
on which I based my observation.
Yes, sir.
That man tasaddaqa bihi fahuwa kafaratun lahu. This is where the Holy Quran refers that Old Testament also left the opportunity for forgiveness, left room for forgiveness. But the stress was laid in the first part during the time of Hazrat Moses on revenge and justice alone. In the second part, the stress was laid, that is during the time of the Masih on forgiveness and to give more than one's due. This is the difference between Moses and Jesus, but the teachings of the Bible contain both these elements. So Isa was a follower of Torah. He did not invent anything from himself.
He also wants to know whether there is a specific mention of this forgiveness in the Old Testament.
That is correct. That has to be produced. Once I studied the Old Testament with this particular object, and I remember having pinpointed the place, but I think we'll have to ask some scholars to reread it, and because I don't remember the reference. There is definitely a reference where forgiveness has been mentioned. Not in the same place where it is tooth for tooth, but in other places. So it has to be, because the Holy Quran refers, it has to be. So when you say that, you should be prepared with your references. This is a good point he has mentioned. And those who are specialists in the Old Testament, who is here, who is well versed? Out of the Muwalladin, is there anyone who is especially well versed in the study of Old Testament? You, Mr. Saab? You don't have any such claim? Or Saki Saab perhaps has? Mr. Saki Saab, you are the oldest and most experienced.
We'll find it. We'll find it.
Thank you, Jazakumullah.
Is that all we want to do?
Yes, that's it.
So Muhammad Abu Shikha is not here today. She is outside here. You are great to fill that gap.
Hazur, we are advised to repeat Surah Fatiha after the Imam, although in low tone, but when the Imam starts another Surah, we are advised to listen only. Hazur, could you Please tell us its hikmat and philosophy.
Yes. First of all, it's very evident. First hikmah is very evident. Every Muslim who says a prayer cannot perform a prayer without remembering Surah Fatiha. And he has to repeat it in every rak'ah of the prayer. So he is bound to know Surah Fatiha. So he can repeat it correctly behind an imam. While the rest of the surahs are not compulsory for every Muslim to remember by heart. He is not to memorize all the verses of the Holy Quran. And as far as the imam goes, he is told that whatever is available to him, he should recite. So if he recites whatever is available to him, and the people behind who do not know what he is reciting, if they attempt to recite, number one, their attention would be diverted too much in that attempt to repeat what they don't know in reality. And number two, they may make mistakes. So it's not good. You shouldn't be permitted to play with the Holy Quran. So it is obvious why it is made incumbent upon Musliman mu'mineen to behave in this manner. We have not quite filled the gap because his questions, there are many parts. Yes, please.
So could I fill in the blanks?
Yes, please. No, but you have your own space. You don't have to fill any blanks.
No, I can give him chance to.
One or two things to just general knowledge, you see.
So to raise the microphone
in the West, only Hindus is a qawm or a nation or a tribe who worship the cow.
Are they the only one?
They are the only ones who worship the cow.
But previous to them, according to the Holy Quran and according to the Bible, the Bani Israel also used to worship the cow.
Exactly, so I was coming to that point. I have a friend who is a Kashmiri. I always call him Yehudi. I call him Yehudi. He is from Kashmir. Now, what I say, because Brahmins also come from Kashmir. And it was Bani Israel, you see, who started worshipping that Bachara when Musa went to Unkohetu. So, do you think it could be a possibility? And other point is also the Jews are in Hindus. They love money, they also love money. They also are very fond of intrigue. This qawm is also very fond of intrigue. They are also against Muslim. These Hindus are also against Muslim. And incidentally, for information, India is the only country where Jews could not compete in business with these Banians. So, don't you think so?
I think it's not fair. There are very strong Jewish houses for worship in India. Even in Karachi there are some. They are everywhere in the world.
As compared to the business in the country,
they have concentrated in certain countries following a certain policy, not at random, but they have their representatives all over the world, and they have 3 or 4 very strong business houses which are controlling affairs as far as the currency is concerned. They are deeply interested in that. For instance, in Afghanistan, there were 4 very strong commercial houses of Jews. One of them specialized in currency racketeering and smuggling of currency, Pakistani currency to Middle East, and from there to change it to Afghan currency, and then going, a circuit was completed, down the circuit, by supplying them with commodities and getting Pakistani currency again, supplying it to the Middle East. That sort of racket was run chiefly by the Jews. And it was a Jewish house
at that time when I investigated, and still it would be perhaps the same, who owned the entire para and entire this Tortham, I was surprised to find this, and when I investigated and asked some of the shopkeepers there, my information proved to be correct, because somebody who had investigated, he was a Swiss who was working in Kabul, who had reported all this to me. Swiss Ahmadi by the name of Rafiq Chanan, you know him perhaps. So he said that they are not the proprietors of these shops. Those Pathan whom you find at Randi Gothal, a majority among them are just agents. So, and the goods are the property of a Jewish house. So when I asked, after learning it, I asked these shopkeepers, small shopkeepers of various kinds, they agreed that they are just agents. They didn't know whose agents they were, but they knew that they didn't own that property. They just went, there was an agency house somewhere in Kabul, and they went there and got the goods and paid them back. So,
my point was, you see, is there any possibility that Hindu could be another tribe of Bani Israel? These Banias?
No, I doubt it very much, because their origin is completely different. In their very far away ancestry, maybe 15,000-20,000 years earlier, they might have a common origin from the Central Asia. That is possible, of course. And but to say that they were offsprings of the Jews or Bani Israel found in the Middle East, this is incorrect, because their history is preserved.
The other question, if you would allow me, is
Of course.
I had a friend, he was my colleague this year, and I was a teacher, Mr. Chandra, his dad. We always used to discuss the matter, you see. And I always told him, you see, that you were Buddhist, you see. That you were Buddhist, you were worshipping idols. He said no. What he told me and what he tried to convince me was that it was not that particular idol he was worshipping. He was worshipping...
for your information, this is exactly the question you was asked yesterday or the day before. You were there with in detail.
Unfortunately, I was actually yesterday. And he spoke of his argument. What he told me was that you also go around your Kaaba. You also face towards...
But I was not absent yesterday, so I know all this.
And you also worship Kaaba?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you.
Yes.
Yesterday this was also mentioned. And I answered the question keeping in view this particular angle of the question. Thank you. So Bashir Sahib, please.
Before him, sir, could I add about this?
Yes, okay, just a moment.
Sir, in Veda there is no cow worship. In the Veda there is no cow worship. Rather the Rig Veda says, enjoins that if you want to rear up your children, give them cow meat or very young cow meat. It was later on by Shankaracharya that this was brought in.
How much later on?
Centuries later on.
So, centuries from how many centuries ago?
Shankaracharya is not very old then. I don't exactly remember the century.
So Vedas
Yes.
are not books written in one particular period, but they are spread over to about 2,000 years.
So they have a very large history. So when you say much later, a few hundred years ago, even that would be very early.
Yes. But
Because Gita was written about 600 years after the last Veda was, out of the 4 books, the last was written. So that comes later on. So was it before Krishna or after Krishna?
It's after Krishna, the Shankaracharya. When he joins with me.
Is he an old figure or just a recent one?
Shankaracharya, old figures. He was the person who raised his banner against Buddhism and was responsible for the expulsion of the Buddhists.
He was living, wasn't he?
No, sir.
Shankaracharya.
He was not.
He was a Pandit.
Yes.
I must be right. I must be right. I should say he was brought by Shankaracharya. That's I'm missing the difference.
Would you kindly let us know about Ayatul Kursi, because it's so much important, especially in some books, it's a very great importance for Ayatul Kursi to read every day.
What about it? What particularly you want to know about that?
This is to be read every day and it would for some kind of, they say that the safeguard of your house and place.
Against God.
Again, thieves or like these kind of things.
Why don't you say Jain?
No,
What you have in your mind?
no, it's just.
Things that I have not mentioned, anyway. That I will feel good for next week. The first time I am hearing.
In some books, I read this thing that.
Not in any books or traditions.
Can you kindly reflect upon these verses that have a very great significance of Ayatul Kursi?
No, the books you have read, I have not read. So I don't know. The ones about thieves and so on. I can only tell you this, that this is the most beautiful verse, single verse, on the qualities of Allah, which has been admired by even the greatest opponents of the Holy Quran. The whole Ayatul Kursi, though it appears to be many verses, is just a single verse. And it tells so much about Allah and His relationship to mankind, to the universe and everything, that is most awe-inspiring and very rich and deep and wide in meaning. So if you concentrate on it while you are reading, and you'll find it very thought-provoking, and new ideas would seem to be emerging from this single verse, and throwing light on very many aspects of human interest, which this verse will light up for you, inshallah. But to begin to comment on this is no place. That's why I'm avoiding it.
But the existence of God is mentioned in this verse.
What?
Existence of God.
No, not only this, there's so many things. I'm just pointing out that if you read this verse, concentrating on its meanings and delving deep into its meanings, then you will find what I say. This has to be experienced rather than to be told. The most beautiful single verse in the Holy Quran, a single verse I mean.
The other thing is that Surah Al-Mulk is also, people say that in the tradition of it, that this will cover the man who will be reading daily this verse in the next world, that he recited this Surah Al-Mulk every day. Could you kindly some light upon this?
You know, this is a tendency found in the Muslims of about 300 years from the time of Muhammad to specialize in these things which you are telling me now. That verse is particularly good for this and that, particularly for that, until quite a few books are written on respective values and qualities of various verses. And some people have gone that far, so much, they have exceeded that we know books written on these subjects in which it is said that if you want to steal and do not want to be detected, do this. Read this verse. If you want to misappropriate other people's money, this is the ideal verse for that. So they have gone so far astray from the Holy Quran by pursuing this subject that I have become allergic to it. Hazrat Mian Bashir Ahmad Sahib once told me an incident. He said that after the partition, he was shopping in Anarkali when an old gentleman with a very big white beard and goodly looking person approached him and said that I am a Muhajir. That was the time, of Muhajirin. So could you please help me? So the Bashir Ahmad was a generous person. So at that time to give somebody a rupiah, you didn't know, was quite something. So Bashir Ahmad gave him 1 rupee and he was deeply impressed. So he said, look here, you have done such a kind act to me and I can read it from your face that you are a very fair gentleman. So I want to repay you by telling you a verse of the Holy Quran which will be of good avail to you. So Mr. said, yes, please tell me. He said, this is a verse if you want to travel without ticket. Any country in the world, just recite this. Yes, I got embarrassed so much that all over afterwards and ran away from that. So things are carried to that extent when you go on pursuing such things. It is the meaning of the Holy Quran which you should concentrate upon. The inner beauties which are hidden tear after tear under every verse. So if you know the meaning would defend you against all evil. Because then you will discover so many things and ways. It's a science, it's not just a hocus pocus. So some people want to turn it to hocus pocus, while Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam treated it as science. Whenever he said something to this effect, he didn't mean superficially. We know positively, we have evidence that he went much deeper. But the people of the later ages, not understanding what he meant, turned it into a gentle mantra or things like that.
For instance, who are reciting these verses all the time in Fajr prayer. So it will be, for us, it will be like as some explanation of the meaning so that everybody can enjoy.
No, that is different. I said this is not the forum for a commentary on verses of the Holy Quran. As such, if you have a particular question to ask, some problem with some verse, that could be handled here. But to turn this into a thus, regular thus, this is not the right place. Yes, please. Bashir Ahmad is so much frustrated by looking at different hands.
I can ask
no hands are raised because I task you, even to rescue. Now everybody is getting up and not giving him chance.
I can do it tomorrow day after.
In continuation of Dr. Gulzar Saab's comment about, I think we see what I would request Huzur to point out to us all, that slowly traditions are creeping into our homes as well, Ahmadi homes, which are breaking the basic rules which the Masih Maud came and destroyed, like Bidat and these sort of traditions like Ayatul Kursi to be hanged on the walls and it will keep thieves and jinnat and so many other afats away from the homes. Likewise, there are other things, you see, which is generally found in other Muslims, as you have pointed out, are creeping slowly into our homes. And I think you see this...
Whenever I come to know of such creepings, I warn them against it and try to rectify it.
So I think you see this...
Something which should not be generalized, it should be particularized. Whenever an enemy sees anything untoward happening in an unhappy house, it's not welcome. You should let us know. Because unless you know which part is to be repaired, you can't just go on repairing every house.
I was surprised to hear such sort of comment from our Buzurg here today.
From?
I said, Dawud Buzurg, I consider him to be a good Buzurg.
I assure you, he is not hanging to the ground. This verse I have to say it out to regard against these arguments. You should satisfy the
Sir, I remember the late Hafiz Ramzan Sahab. He was...
Did you happen to know him?
Yes, sir. He used to come to Quetta to meet Ravi prayers.
You must have been a small child.
Small, yes, sir. And, yes, sir. And he used to give dars after Tarawih. And his dars was very interesting, and he used to tell few jokes. And I do remember one joke about Ayatul Kursi as well. And he told us that there was an old lady who had heard the same thing as Gulzar was told, that it keeps thieves away. Now, unfortunately, that lady, she didn't know Ayatul Kursi. And she was once entered upon by the thieves. And as she didn't know Ayatul Kursi, she started shouting, Kursi the Kursi, Kursi the Kursi. And when the thieves heard this, they ran away. It didn't work that way.
And he was the loudest to laugh at his own jokes. Yes, please. Hi, Sam.
इसी सवाल में हमारे 100 साल में एक गैरत के दोस्त सवाल है ये कुर्सी वाला क्या है कुर्सी वाला तो कुर्सी पे कुर्सी वाला नहीं वो कह रहे वो एक्चुअल कुर्सी के वो छोटे छोटे बुक छुपाई हुई हैं वो लोगों को फ्री बांटते हैं तो उनको आपस में झगड़ रहे थे वो कह रहे थे कल एक्चुअल कुर्सी जो है कुरान का दिन है तो उन्होंने हमसे भी सवाल किया कि आप मैम जी हमें बताएं ये क्या मामला है दूसरा कह रहा है पूरा आल इमरान है तो मैंने उसे ये जवाब दिया कि ये भी कहते हैं कि कुरान शरीफ से लेकर सूरह नास तक सारा ही चीज़ जो है वो कुरान का दिल है सूरह तो कुर्सी पे क्यों आप झगड़ा कर रहे हैं इसका मतलब वो बताएं कि ये वाकया इन्होंने ये गैरानियों ने ये किताब को शुरू की हुई है
You should know verses as they should be known for the purpose for which they are revealed. And you should familiarize with them, you should begin to love them by detecting the beauty, hidden beauty of the Holy Quran. That is the purpose, and then to act upon them. It is not this thing, this sort of thing, as I told you, started with some hints from Hazrat Abdas Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam on various qualities or aspects of certain verses or surahs. He had in his mind some very deep message to be given in that way. But people unfortunately did not understand that message and took it
to far too superficially, like he has been treated in all his prophecies about, for instance, there being the donkey of the Dajjal or Antichrist. They have taken things too literally. I'll give an illustration to make this thing very clear, that although there are certain things related ultimately to Muhammad, but this is not what he meant superficially. There was a hidden message which he was giving. And later on, we know for certain that in certain cases the hidden message was that which has already been revealed. For instance, he said that if you want to be saved from the evil influence of the Dajjal, you read the first 10 verses of Surah Kahf and the last 10 verses of the Surah Kahf daily, recite them. So people started reciting them, and even till today there are many who would be reciting them without knowing the import of the message. What was said was that if you read the first 10 verses and the last 10 verses with attention, you would find the Dajjal described in therein, in all its aspects. So whenever he appears, you will recognize him. And if you know from where you are being attacked, you can save yourself. If you don't know where the attack is coming from, you are totally helpless against the attack, even if it's a minor attack. So now when Hazrat Masih Maud told us and explained things to us, we're telling that these first 10 verses are in fact dealing with the Christianity, and the last 10 verses deal with the material progress of Yajuj Majuj. That is the same. The Dajjal has two aspects, one religious aspect which is Christianity, one material aspect which is called the progress of the Yajuj Majuj. So that is exactly what is said in these two particular areas of the surah. So it was a message for people to work, to put in their labor, to try to understand the Holy Quran and find out what is said there. It is like that story, that common story about a father who was about to die and who apparently was leaving nothing for his children except for an odd acre or two of land. So when he was about to die, he said to his children, look here, I have buried a great treasure for you under whatever land I am leaving for you. So day and night they put the earth upside down, trying to discover the treasure, and there was no treasure to be found. So a wise man was passing by. He said, what has happened to you? You have done so much. You have put in so much labor for nothing. He said, this is what our father told us. He said he was a wise man. He wanted you to get a very rich crop out of this. So this is the treasure he has left for you. When they sowed their seed on that well pulverized soil, it is said that the crop was so rich and so wonderful that they actually became rich. So there are hints of wise men, not of superficial people. Prophets' sayings should be taken as prophet sayings, and you should delve deep into the meaning of those sayings. But unfortunately, as I have said, people have made a joke out of these things, not understanding the message. They convert it into exactly the things which Muhammad would never have permitted his followers to indulge in. And he never did. In the time of the first history of Islam, during the time of Muhammad bears me out that these things were not found in Sahaba, which are being pursued by the people of the latter days.